come to a very nice part of our program, time when we're going to hear from a man who has been an outstanding basketball referee and rules authority since 1921. Our program, I know you've read, and it said that this man is known for his courage on the playing court, his complete impartiality, his fine sense of fairness, and his keen interest to see the game is played so it's for the best interest of the fans and for the game. It's true that we say he was a coach, not a coach, but a famous referee in basketball days when it was dangerous to rule against the home team. And this man has ruled against the home team anytime he thought it was right and fair to rule against such teams. He's never had to suffer real physical violence. He's had some near misses because some hometown fans get very steamed up. He had to be escorted out of town one time by the police department, practically smuggled out, because he noticed that, I won't mention the name of the town, they're probably a good customer, but he noticed that the hometown team, or the spectators for the hometown team, every time the visitors tried to shoot a basket, the spectators would shake the basket. And he caught that very quickly and called the foul, and he told the opposing team, now you go back there to the foul line and start shooting baskets and keep right on doing it until you sink one in. That's when he had to have the police escort to get him out of that town. It gives me a great deal of privilege to introduce to you that veteran referee of basketball, Mr. Richard Dick Meehan. Mr. Meehan.
Mr. Manley, Mr. Watson, Mrs. Watson, and ladies and gentlemen of IBM. After that tremendous build-up your Toastmaster has given me, even I'm waiting to see what I have to say. I had the honor of addressing your Sports Awards dinner in Poughkeepsie in 1948, and it was held in the beautiful auditorium of the country club there, and my outstanding memory of a most enjoyable evening was the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Watson seemed to be enjoying themselves just as much as the lowliest kid in the organization, and it electrified everybody, and everybody had a tremendous time. I'd like to congratulate you folks out there for having selected a business organization to work in where they have such a boss as Mr. Thomas Watson. Now I want to tell you a story about the most chivalrous race of people on God's green earth, the Irish. The Irish are known for their chivalry. They're good to their women. Regardless of how little education an Irishman may have received, he usually manages to show the instincts of a gentleman in his treatment toward women. I was talking to a big Irishman the other day, and he said, you know, I never lifted my hand to a woman but once in my life. And that was to the wife about a year after we got married. And would you believe me, sir, that after I hit her, I couldn't look at anybody in the face for 2 weeks. And then I got so I could just about see out of one eye. The Irish are also the most intelligent race of people on earth. I can prove that. 2 Irishmen meet on the street, and one fellow says, is that top coat that you bought only 3 weeks ago? He says, it is. Well, I said, goodness gracious, man, the wrinkles of it, you think you owned it 10 years. Well, he said, what am I going to do? It's been drizzling and raining the last few nights, and when I come home to go to bed, I throw it on the chair in the bedroom, and when I get up in the morning, it's full of wrinkles. He said, you throw it on the chair. Why don't you get one of those coat hangers? He said, I had one, but the wood hurts my shoulder and the hook knocks my hat off. Here's a story about two strangers going to Chicago, 20th century, and they sat aside each other in the club car and had quite an enjoyable conversation. As they approached Chicago, the little man said to the big man, what business are you in, mister? He said, I'm a meat packer here in Chicago. So he handed him a card. He says, I'm a lawyer from New York. Anytime you should come to New York, by all means, you should get in touch with me. So the meat packer looked at the card. It read, O'Brien and Goldberg, attorneys at law, 135 Broadway, New York City. The meat packer said, you know, that's what I like about New York. The Irish and the Jews get along so well together. They belong to the same clubs, they live in the same apartments, they go into business partnerships. It's really amazing. The little guy says, I'll tell you what's more amazing. I'm O'Brien. Then there's the story of the two Jewish gentlemen who met on the street and inquired about each other's family. One fellow said, how's the boy Sam? He said, shh. Sam is Seymour now. He's a doctor. He said, how is Itzik? He said, shh. Itzik is now Irving. He's a lawyer. He said, how is Moish? Well, he says, Moish is still Moish. He's a pants maker. He supports the family. I'd like to pay tribute to one of the gentlemen here who was here tonight in this great array of sports. I'll pass up my brother umpire down there. I think I umpired some baseball that he pitched out some years ago. I think he's a crooked arm. He's a left-hander, I'm pretty sure. How you can be a left-hander and an umpire, Tommy, I can't understand, can you? But this gentleman's name is Frank Schellenbach, and he was the victim of a ban against the spitball. Is Frank still here, or is he gone? Frank Schellenbach. Well, oh, have they? Is that where he's gone to? Well, I'll tell the story anyway. You remember him. He was the tall man in the brown suit here, and he was older than the rest of them. And about 1920, he was a promising young pitcher with the Chicago White Sox. And his best pitch was the spitball. Now, Tommy Hendrick and those fellows that I can see out in the audience, they understand what the spitball is, but perhaps some of you ladies don't. And here's what it was. The round ball, the pitcher used to put a stick of slippery elm in his mouth, or a slippery elm tablet. And as soon as he chewed on that, it created a thick saliva in his mouth. And he would apply that saliva to the ball just about as much as would cover those two fingers. And you can readily see that when the ball left his hand, these two top fingers would slip off, leaving the thumb last on the ball, which gave it that revolution. And after it went about 50, 80 feet or so, it would take a dip. And it was a very effective delivery. But because of some other deliveries that had been perfected at that time, the emery ball, which was caused by a pitcher, they'd split the leather of the glove down here and sew a piece of machinist emery paper inside, and just separate the leather and rub the ball on the emery paper, which would cause fish scales to kick up on the ball about the size of a $50. And they'd throw that, and the smooth ball going through the air would, with these little rudders or fish scales that had been caused, this abrasion by the emery paper, they would catch the air, and they made the ball what ball players call winging. In other words, it would steer the ball just like a rudder at the back of a rowboat would steer the boat through the water. And these little fish scales hanging on one portion of the outside circumference of the ball would cause it to act weird. Sometimes it would break down, sometimes break out, and in one case, a third baseman with the Brooklyn Ball Club named Jimmy Johnstone, he's now the groundkeeper at Nashville, or Chattanooga, I forget which, he was struck right in the nose with a ball that broke from the outside of the plate. But they had the shine ball. The pitcher would put some plumber's paraffin on the back of his trousers, and he'd keep shining one side of the ball up and let the rest of the ball become rough in general usage of hitting up against bats and grandstands and fences. And he'd have one side slick and one side rough, which caused the ball to act queer. Of course, these fellas had good fast balls, and they were hard enough to hit without any artificial assistance. And with the emery ball and the shine ball and the mud ball, which they packed on one side of the stitches, and the spit ball, why, the powers that be in baseball decreed that the pitching was getting the upper hand over the offense, and they decided to take these and declare these to be illegal deliveries. And now any umpire who catches a pitcher spitting on the ball or roughing it up, he can be suspended for 10 days, immediately ordered from the game, although I understand a few of the boys work that little spit in there once in a while now, and the umpire shuts his eyes to it. But what I wanted to say about this Schellenberg was here was a young kid with the Chicago White Sox. It was about a year away, which meant he was to be sent down at the time when the rosters have to be shortened up, May 15th, when they have to get down to a 25-player limit. He was sent down to a Pacific Coast club for a little seasoning. And then the ban was issued against the illegal deliveries, including the spitball. Now, there were about 6 pitchers in the big leagues at the time: Burley Grimes, Phil Douglas, a left-hand spitball pitcher named Clarence Mitchell, Urban Shaka, and possibly, I can't remember the others. But they were permitted to remain in the big leagues and were permitted to throw the spitball because it was the principal tool they had in their kit, so to speak, and it was the delivery upon which they depended for their livelihood. They were permitted to end out their careers and with the use of the spitball. But the decree said that no player could come from the minor leagues and ever throw the spitball again. And this man who was here tonight was caught in that thing. He was a great pitcher. And he could never come back to the big leagues because without the spitball, he wasn't a big league pitcher. With the spitball, he was. And he pitched for 16 years on the Pacific Coast. And it was a crying shame because he never got the money he should have had. But he learned how to pitch. And now I would say, and I think Leo DeRocha will agree with me, that he, because of his lean years and because he had to learn the hard way how to pitch when he lost his fastball out there on the coast, he now is the outstanding pitcher coach in the business. I understand DeRocha doesn't care anything about the pitching rotation. He just leaves it up to Frank Schellenberg. Maybe I've devoted too much time here, but I think it was in as much as he was decent enough to come. He and Jocko Conlon are on the same team. They're both left-handed, so anything can happen on that team of umpires. But here's one of the best stories I ever heard about umpiring. It's how a man changes after he quits playing and becomes an umpire. A transition that this pitcher down here has already gone through. This fellow's name was Johnny King, and for 18 years he played in the minor leagues. And he was a holy terror against umpires. He just didn't like umpires and vice versa. He was thrown out of more games than anybody in the history of baseball. Now, virtually his entire career was in the minor leagues. He was up one spring with the Giants for what the boys call a cup of coffee, but he went back to the minors again. And after 18 years, Johnny was out of a livelihood. He was all finished as a player, and knowing no other way of making a living, he sneaked out to a little league in the Southwest, bought himself a whisk broom and a First Communion suit, and went to work as an umpire. He did all right for a day or two, and the third day, his big tough hitter up at the plate, and a pitch came in about up here, and Johnny looked at it and says, "Strike three, you're out." The batter jumped out of the box with fire in his eye. He said, no, the pitch was too high. That was no strike, that was a ball. Johnny said, "Look here, young man. For 18 years I thought that was a ball, but I'm thinking different now." Then there's the great story about Frank Brugge, who was in professional basketball with me, and he was also in baseball. He was a catcher with both Philadelphia clubs. He was with the Cincinnati Reds and the Boston Braves, and of course he played in the minors for the usual apprenticeship of most professional ball players. He said, Frank is a colorful character. He's a wonderful guy, but a terrific fabricator. He said to me, "I never told you about that time we won the pennant in the Southern Association. Did I, Dick?" I said, "I don't think you ever have, Frank." Well, then he said, "I can speak freely." Ever since the bell rang in April, he says, I was with the Mobile Club that year, and ever since the bell rang in April, we've been running neck and neck with Birmingham. That way all through the summer. We're first, they're first, we're first, they're... We outdistance the other 6 clubs in the association. Late in September, we get into Birmingham for a 5-game series. And it's so close, the club that take 3 out of 5 wins the pennant. Well, each club wins 2. And the 5th game was the prettiest ball game you ever seen in your life. Nothing for 16 straight innings. Well, it's getting kind of dark. We're the road club. We go to bat first. I ain't been able to buy a base hit all day. So I says to this umpire, "Time, mister." And I go back to the dugout, and I borrow a bat off a pitcher. This pitcher couldn't hit Lake Erie with a gnaw. But I take his stick up there, and I get a hold of that first curveball inside, right out of the park for 4. Well, I can see me picture in all them Southern newspapers, not only win a 17-inning game with a homer, but a pennant as well. But we got to get these 3 guys out, and they're half of the 17th. They're the home club. It's getting awful dark by then. But he says, we got rid of the first 2 men through miraculous catches of foul balls by myself, right up against the grandstand. Then this big hay shaker we got pitching throws his arm out, walks 3 men in a row. Now there's a situation. 3 on base, 2 out. Any kind of a blow is going to knock us out of a pennant, and we ain't got another chucker on the club that can comb his hair. It's getting awful dark by then. So I turned around to the umpire and I said, "Listen, mister, why don't you call this game? It's so dark I can hardly see that pitcher out there." The umpire says, "You can hardly see the pitcher. I can't see him at all." I'm crazy or something? If I ever called this with 3 home players on the bases, those wolves would come out of that stand and they'd hang me to the nearest tree. "You're out of luck," he says, "for calling." Well, Brooks says he gave me an idea he couldn't see that picture much, so I called time and I mope out to the pitcher's box and I said to this guy, give me that apple. And I stick it under my chest protector and I come back and put the cage on. I get down, I give him the business, and he winds up and throws nothing at all. I slam the ball in the glove and the umpire says, strike one. He said, I slammed the ball in the glove and the umpire says, strike two. He says, the third one I hold right in the slot for him. He says, strike three, you're out. He says, would you believe that batter turned around and says, why, you blind son of a gun, that last one was 2 foot outside. I think that's No, it's a terrible death to be talked to death. And that's why I want to go now. But I would just like to tell one story apropos of that situation. There was a famous old professor from Yale who was infamous for the length of his speeches. At the Yale Club, he was invited to speak one night here in New York, and he got up and took as the subject of his discourse the 4 letters of the word Yale, and very modestly did 2 hours and 34 minutes. The first letter, Y, he spoke about the youthfulness of Yale teaching. And although its ivy-clad walls are ancient, its teaching is kept perennially youthful and modern. He gave that 42 minutes. The second letter, A, he spoke about the ardor of Yale men for 39 minutes. The third letter, L, he spoke about the loyalty of Yale men. Loyal to ideals taught at alma mater and loyal to one another the world over. He gave that 49 minutes and finished with the balance of time on E, the efficiency of Yale men. He sat down. The next speaker was presented and got to his feet rather wearily, and he said, Mr. Toastmaster and gentlemen, we can usually depend upon Professor Dokes to give us something unique and interesting in his public utterances, and most assuredly his selection of the 4 letters of our beloved alma mater around which to weave his discourse here this evening was most unique and most interesting. I'd like to thank the professor for his magnificent address, and at the same time, I'd like to thank Almighty God that this dinner wasn't given in honor of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Thank you very much, Dick Meehan. I think you can tell by that applause how much our people enjoyed hearing you tonight. I like particularly your remarks about how wonderful the Irish are. I can only say I think you're a very smart man, Mr. I also see how you escape bodily harm from those hometown teams. When you decided against them, you probably talked your way out of it. Thank you, Mr. Meehan.